All right, there we are. Good morning, folks. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and we're going to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we do, the usual disclaimers and fan babble. Tolkien kind of mood. And I'm sorry about any delays because technical difficulties. So, what is this all about? Well, every once in a while, usually about this time of year, I get that Tolkien kind of itch. And when you go into the fandoms, when you're a part of various fandoms, which I am, I don't know. There's something that sets Tolkien apart for me. Now, I've read other modern fantasy, I've read Game of Thrones. But while those are good reads, not to discount them, there's something that there's a beauty to Tolkien. Then there's something that many literature scholars always seem to miss. You know the typical story of the hero's journey. If you studied in English, you know the archetypes. Many people just say that Tolkien followed this hero's journey, but the fact is, he actually didn't. The hero's journey, as we know, that comes from Greek myths, and let me just say, I did swallow Bullfinch's mythology and almost was able to regurgitate it at one point when I was circa 10 years old. What's different with Tolkien, and also what sets him apart from other of the fantasy genre, was the power of the small. The overarching hero of his series is not the traditional hero. Now, Frodo shared some elements of those traditional heroes. The reluctant hero to go on an epic journey. We all know how the archetype goes, right? But what's different about Frodo was he wasn't the strong man. He wasn't like Jason the Argonaut. He wasn't the clever, brave Odysseus. He wasn't King Arthur. What was different about Frodo was he was like one of us. Your everyday person. Not a person prepared their whole lives for a particular role. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't a muscle bound. He wasn't going around hunting for adventure. He was none of those things. He's the kind of quiet dude that you may find down the street who likes to read books and smoke a pipe. He's a dude who likes to nap under apple trees. He's the dude that you might find, like one of us. He wasn't particularly built for heroism. In fact, it was the exact opposite. He didn't come from some great lineage. He wasn't related to some great king. He's like one of us. That is the beauty of it. It's not the all conquering hero. It's not Jason or Hercules or King Arthur or any of these others that have come down and have developed over time. And it impacted me, my life. And I think it became very formative for me because it helped form my belief in the power of the small. That you didn't have to come from a great family. You didn't have to be wealthy. You didn't have to, it's who you know in order to be making impact. You don't even have to be well known or famous to make an impact. The power of the small, the power of the ripple effect, which is why I believe in this channel in spite of the small number of subscribers, because what have I told you guys before? Because that one small person can go tell another person. And that person can go and tell another person. Never underestimate the impact that you can have, even if you can't see it with your own eyes. That is part of the beauty of it. And we've lost that. We've lost that faith in the power of the small, especially in this modern era. And as things continue to go down the toilet, I can only hope that maybe the power of the small can start coming to mean something again. But anyways, I digress. Sorry, nerd moment. But my point remains. Never underestimate your impact on the world, even if you can't see that impact with your own eyes. You never know how far one small act of kindness or one small stand when you see something evil, unjust, or wrong going down, how much of an impact that can actually have on the future. That's my message there. This is coming from a nihilist, so you can tell how deeply impacted I was by all of that. And I do very much think that it was part of why I started to fight this fight, why I became a part of the neurodiversity movement in the first place, because I believe in that. I still believe in that. In spite of all the ugly, dark, and horrific things that is done to each and every single one of us, I still believe in that. Maybe I'm naive, or maybe I've just seen evidence of the power of the small. But let's move on. In the description box, folks, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, speaking of the power of the small, that interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much they've threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also linked in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding, folks, in case JRC decides to see through with their threat. Also included in there is the Ozark's first article in regards to the Agape boarding school, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation. This is a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor still on the premises with full access to the boys up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy defunding libraries to do his job, and you've got a governor that I don't know if he needs an intervention. I don't know what he needs, but send help. And please share that article on all your social media. Also included, of course, as always, all the pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masemba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollums back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. When we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please use your headphones. Warning! This channel is marked not for children for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and we do speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously, parental supervision is advised. Trigger warning. We are about to, once again, descend into the mad ravings of the lunatic mind known as Dr. Matthew Israel. You're going to hear gaslighting, victim blaming, pseudoscience, lies, ableism and bigotry, and abuse and torture apologencia, all from a man with an massive ego and even larger God complex. So, folks, please be prepared for the condescending, arrogant, full-chested stupid, okay? All right, so where we left off yesterday is kind of a rehasher. Dr. Israel is trying to dupe us all again into believing that one form of treatment should actually be able to work 100% of the time on 100% of the individuals with the autism diagnosis. Why that doesn't work is each of us with the diagnosis and how that diagnosis fits us is different as night and day because every human being is different. Therefore, the logic would be you should cater the particular treatment to the individual patient, as opposed to trying to do this cookie cutter nonsense. But again, Dr. Israel doesn't deal in logic. He's playing upon the quick fix culture. So, who's surprised, right? All right, into the paragraph here. As noted earlier in this paper, to evaluate properly claims by a positive-only programs that they are able to treat individuals with equally severe behavior disorders as those treated at the JRC, one needs to take into account factors such as how severe are the behaviors currently, if the student attended JRC earlier in his career, whether JRC's intensive treatment responsible for why it is now possible to treat the individual with positive-only procedures, whether psychotropic drugs being used, whether the program's putting the same level of treatment and educational demands. Dude, seriously, your educational demands is wrapping up popsicle sticks. You're not exactly the gold standard there. Whether the program's simply warehousing the individual, again, considering you actually do warehouse the individuals and make them do meaningless, repetitive tasks that actually have no substantive meaning, and cannot in any way be employed out there in the real world, doesn't help the case. To the restraint, timeouts, and or isolation procedures that are being used. All right, I'm going to call you out. And again, I'm going to allude to the ARC, which you kind of don't call out specifically. And gee, I wonder why that is. Could it be because they are far more massive than you? Why this is ridiculous argument, Doctor, is I will allude you again that the ARC is not just a state school. The ARC is a massive organization with offices all over the country, including out in rural areas. They provide services for every single part of a disabled, mentally ill, and physical disability person's life. From childhood to transition age to elderly. Their programs are vast and varied, and each of the programs are run specifically by experts who have specific expertise for the area that they are placed the head of. They have served individuals with various disabilities and mental health issues for more decades than the JRC has even been an idea in Matthew Israel's head. So you're talking about an organization serving individuals for that many decades, and the many, at this point, literally millions of consumers that they have served. And you're going to try and tell me that the ARC has never, ever, ever, ever had anyone as with the same level of severity as the kids you take into the JRC. Dude, the numbers do not agree with you. That is simply way too many consumers over way too many years to make that kind of ridiculous claim. Really is. Now, possibly you can make that argument with the May Institute. I'll give you that. But you're not just referring to the May Institute here. You are using them as an example, but you're alluding to that every organization that provides services of this kind are somehow jealous of you and are competitors of you that's trying to filch your students. It's a joke, Doctor. It's literally a joke. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the numbers, it doesn't work. If you look at the logic, it doesn't work. The matter of fact that the ARC has overseen and helped write programs for kids as severe as Dr. Israel describes. I know because I have worked with them closely, both on a program basis and on an individual basis when the situation called for it. They cater their programs to the individual, not to this cookie cutter idea of one size fits all that Dr. Israel keeps trying to shove down our throats. And that's why it works, folks. They've had literally decades to perfect what they do and set it up as a model. The programs, the job programs, the transition, the school age programs, even through elementary school, are all overseen by experts in their fields. And it's not just that, folks. They have something the JRC doesn't. A relationship with the disability advocates community. From the neurodiversity advocates to the People First movement. Yeah. Crazy, right? Crazy that you have a national organization that has been around that long and has been as successful as they are, who actually don't try to shout us down, but would rather grab us and make us a part of it, to act as consultants, if to use the word, and not just invite us to be consultants, but unlike many organizations, are willing to pay for us to give consulting services on said programs. An alien concept, I know, being paid after being asked to be consultants, but that's the difference, isn't it? Dr. Israel doesn't want you to believe that that's possible. He doesn't want you to believe that us advocates actually do indeed have a vast knowledge on what's available out there, are experts in our own right, and have the ability to be able to inform a program on what does and doesn't work. Yes, even on the quote unquote most severe behavioral issue kids. Because the ARC understands the fact that once upon a time, we were those kids. Who better to use as a consultant other than an individual who's been there? This is what happens when you use logic instead of fantasy. When you decide to use what works as opposed to a fanciful lie. The ARC stands in massive contrast to Dr. Israel because he wants you to believe that outside of aversives that such things are impossible. And if they are possible and they are showing those numbers, then those kids just can't possibly be as severe as the kids he so-called treats. But the numbers don't back him up. And ARC, though I look to them as the big juggernaut in this particular field, are hardly alone. Easter Seals is there. Places like Nova, DCO, and even more important, and who work very closely with the ARC, the National Independent Living Centers. That is basically the child of the disability rights movement. A direct child of the disability rights movement is what the Centers for Independent Living are. And ARC and them work like this. They have for the last 3 decades. Imagine that, right? See, doctor, the reason why I call you a liar is because I have the numbers to back it up. I have ARC and a whole host of other organizations that have decided to invite the disability rights people in and started to speak with us and work with us. Imagine that. Imagine programs that invite us in to discuss what does and doesn't work to create even better programs for the next generation. Dr. Israel can't. He's convinced that that's impossible for the kids that he treats. And he's dishonest with his numbers, and he builds up logical strawmen that are so paper thin and easy to tear apart, I don't even break a sweat doing them. You can't sit there and say what he's saying here, but the psychotropic drugs or the educational demands. Not when it comes to a place like ARC, who has literally built transition programs that put many kids that Dr. Israel would tell you were too behaviorally out of control into secondary education. They've done so consecutively for over the last 25 years. And we're going to close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this morning. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.